We've probably all at some point fallen down and hurt ourselves. Maybe you were on the playground and you fell and scraped up your knee, or maybe you got scratched by your pet, or maybe you're a teacher and you're grading your students' papers, and eventually you get a nick on your finger. But you know, that kind of injury we seem to heal from very well. In fact, in just a few weeks, it goes away. It's like we never, ever had it. See, our bodies have this amazing ability to regenerate. But you know, there are some types of injuries we don't regenerate from very well, that may leave a lasting scar, a permanent reminder of something tragic that happened. Now, why do we heal with a paper cut, complete healing, but other types of injuries we don't heal so well from? Well, maybe you're saying that, that first one was a simple type of injury. It's simple. The body can handle it. It can't handle these complex. There's a lot of damage there. But yet, when we look in nature, we actually see examples where you can recover, and animals recover from devastating injuries. I'll give you an example. For example, the salamander. If you cut off its leg, over a period of time, it actually will, at least on my presentation, it'll actually regrow for you. You can get complete regeneration of that limb. Now, what that tells us is that it is possible in nature, and therefore for living organisms, to regrow missing body parts. But if I cut off your leg, I cut off your hand, nothing grows back. So what's going on here? Well, really, when the injury gets too large, your body doesn't know how to handle the injury, and so it needs some help. The idea then is, can we take cells, ideally cells from the patient, place them onto some sort of three-dimensional scaffold that gives us the shape of the organ, and really place that into the patient and allow and guide the body's natural regenerative processes to do the healing for us. Is that even possible? I'm going to tell you the story about Caitlin. Caitlin, when she was born, she had some problems. And among many of her medical problems, one of them was that the bladder of Caitlin was actually very small. It was very small, and it didn't work so well, so that as it filled up, it didn't release the pee very easily. So this was a huge problem because as you sit in this audience right now, your body is constantly cleansing itself of the poisons in it and puts it down from your kidneys down into this reservoir known as the bladder to be able to really allow you to enjoy life without peeing on yourself every second. So a bladder is a wonderful thing. But in her case, it was too small. And so what we were able to do was we could actually take that principle of cells and scaffolds and actually build a larger reservoir for her. So we could take the scaffolding materials made of the same kind of stuff if you've ever had dissolvable stitches before. We then could form it into a shape, make it three-dimensional, and then previously we had taken a very small piece of tissue from her and actually extracted out the cells that make up the bladder. We were able to grow them up in a lab and then be able to paint the inside of this bowl with cells, paint the outside of the bowl with cells, and then we were able to put this into the patient. So here's what we see right before we put or after we put the cells on it, right before as we implant it, and then as we close it up, here's what happens. So you see in the upper left-hand corner, this is a radiograph of what her bladder looks like. You'll notice it's very small that's in here. And in fact, if we put a little pressure probe in there, what we see is that after you give her a glass of water, it fills up. If the pressure if that black line ever gets above the red one, you actually have enough pressure in there to push urine up from the bladder up into the kidneys and cause kidney failure and death. You can imagine your quality of life if you had to be afraid of drinking a glass of water. That's the kind of life that she was facing. So after the procedure was done, instead of what do we see? We see that the volume has increased significantly. We see that it does not leak. And now what we see is that as it fills up, instead of worrying about the sewer system of our body backing up, we actually see now when it fills up, that it actually fills up much more in line with how a normal child's bladder would fill up. So this really was able to improve the quality of life for this young patient. And so the idea works. Cells, scaffolds, you can actually build an organ out of it. But where do we go from there? You know, if we think about our body, it's got a lot of complexity. In fact, I'll show you a picture of just 2 body parts, and we've stripped away everything but just the blood vessels. Here's what we see, the heart and the hand. Can you imagine trying to take cells and paint them everywhere so that you could get a blood supply to an organ? Not to mention all the muscle or the bone or the tendon or the skin that's involved. It's really a huge task. And that's where we have to look for other ideas in order to build these organs. And the idea actually may be so simple. It may be sitting at your home. You may have done your homework on it last night. It may be in your classroom. And that's the idea of printing. You see, a printer can take a picture with your iPhone. It can then, in the computer, convert it over into a format that can go to a printer. The printer then takes ink and puts out dots everywhere and can actually make a nice, pretty picture. But instead of printing ink, could we print cells? Could we print scaffolds? Could we actually print not a pretty picture, but a pretty face? That's the reality that may happen one day. You can imagine being able to go into a hospital. There you are, you're injured. To be able to go and put you on a bed, come over with the printers and actually print whatever organ or tissue that you need. So for example, we could scan the wound. We could then figure out exactly what's the right materials, what's the right cells, and literally print you a new organ. So we could take, again, a 3-dimensional image of it, take an MRI, take whatever, be able to print it out, and here's we see actually an ear that was printed, ready for implantation. That's the future that I see coming that's in here. What could be next? Really, that's up to you. You're the ones that are going to be really bringing this stuff to the patients. Being able to build these complex organs, whether it be a kidney, an ear, a nose, a finger. Really, I see that the future of bioprinting is one that really looks quite good, that we may one day be able to really rid us of many of the problems that we face, particularly in the area of organ transplantation. There are way too many people that need organs. We have no way to supply it. We really do need to have new ways to be able to meet this huge demand. And so with that, I thank you. And again, hopefully one day you'll be the ones that are really making our patients say, "Thank you, doctor."